Hey Snowboard Addiction, Taevis here. And in this video, I'm very excited because Dave, one of our Addiction Plus students, is letting me go and give a progress report on his riding. So Dave has been utilizing one of our Addiction Plus features called video analysis. That lets him submit videos of his riding and we'll go and break it down and tell him how to improve. So first, I'm going to go and catch you up on the progress we've made with Dave and what I've told him to work on, how to improve. And then we're going to go and break down his newest video submissions and give him the next steps to improve his riding. So the first thing here is his frontside 360s. These are going to be really quick to catch you up because we have frontside 360s, backside 360s, and Wildcats to go over. So I don't want to take too long before getting to the new tricks. So here, Dave was doing a lot of unnecessary speed checks coming in, and he was doing a much too big of a setup carve coming into a jump for a front free. This was making it so he had a hard time getting his timing, making him pre-spin the jump, having his upper body in this completely rotated position, making it so he doesn't have any rotational power when he leaves the jump. So the two pieces of advice I gave Dave was to go and narrow his setup carve. A smaller setup carve makes it easier to hold your edge pressure, and just slow down his timing so he can actually have momentum leaving off a lip by having his upper body finish extending as his tail slides off. So those are the two pieces of advice I gave him there. And then he sent me this video a couple weeks later of his next frontside 360 attempt. So we'll watch it in full speed coming in. And there's a few things I really liked here. First of all, he's doing a much smaller setup carve, still a little bit bigger than I'd like, but he's holding a much better heel edge, and look at his upper body extension. His upper body isn't holding his fully rotated form quite as long, and that's giving him more pop and a cleaner rotation. So there's still a few things that I wanted him to fix here. First of all, the setup carve is still too big. See how he's getting on his heel edge before the spoon of the jump? Whenever you're getting onto your edge and transitioning edges, you really want to be doing it around here, the spoon, where you start going uphill. Because if you get on your edge when it's still going downhill, it's going to be really hard to not go and pre-spin off. So I went and emphasized a little bit more like, hey Dave, you need to be more patient with that, and your rotation is still a little bit early, making it so your board's pre-spinning a bit. Other than that, his only problem here was he looked up from his blind landing too soon. This is mostly because he didn't have the full control on the jump because of his pre-spin, but didn't let him hold the constant spot. So I told him to focus on his takeoff and then make sure he's holding that blind landing a little bit longer. So we're all cut up on the front freeze. Now let's do the back freeze. So this is the first back free I saw Dave's, and you can see pretty similar mistakes to the front side 360. Coming in with a massive setup carve, what's causing his upper and lower body to be really separate. So see how his legs are here, his upper body's here. That's making his center of mass be set here, where you really want it over your snowboard. So what happens here is his weight's forward, making it so his rotation becomes down and his legs are behind his upper body, basically not taking up straight with a jump. And that's throwing off his axis of rotation, making it so he needs to whip it around and he's coming in super off axis. So what I told Dave here was a couple things. First of all, again, narrow in the setup carve. That big of a setup carve is causing his upper and lower body to be way too out of position, not letting him keep his weight over top of his board. The next is notice how his arms throwing sort of downwards towards the ground. This is meaning he's dropping his front shoulder. And that's also something that's really causing his axis of rotation to be thrown off. So those were the two main things I wanted him to focus on, because from there, you'll be able to get more control and more power. So this is the second backside 360 sent to me a couple weeks later. You can see a little bit of a different shape on the jumps, and this is a lot better. Still pretty messy, but look at how much more pop and power he's getting, and he's actually getting around and landing. So there's still some stuff that he needs to improve here, but let's go and highlight what he did fix. First of all, his setup carve. Look at, he isn't transitioning to his toes nearly as early. He's a lot more stacked over top of his snowboard, so his weight is way closer to being set over the toes, what's absolutely awesome. And then his snap isn't nearly as downward. So he's going and maintaining a taller upper body position when throwing off. But he still has this funk and disconnect, and he's still landing tail heavy. So what I told him to work on here was to go and delay that setup carve even a bit more. That's a little bit too much of a transition. And then his snap is going and needs to be still slightly less down. So you can really see it right here, how he's taking off and his board sort of angled. He's sort of carving off the takeoff and his back arms up and his front arms down. So the same problems he had on the first one, just way less intense. So what all he needs to do here is dial it in and keep on working on improving that a little bit more. Because other than that, he's getting good pop, good rotation. And then I also gave him something to think about in the air. So notice here how he's going and getting really wound up and caught on his arms. So I also gave him tips on just leading that rotation with that upper body so he can go and get more into that landing and more control. Because if you're going and having your upper body get caught up, you're not going to be able to make any micro adjustments. The last trick we need to get caught up on is the Wildcat. So this is the main reason Dave reached out to me, and it's because he was getting absolutely worked on the Wildcats. So he sent me 3 different Wildcats. Shoop. So, and this one is the one that I felt highlights the mistakes the most. So the issue Dave is having on his Wildcats here is a few things. First of all, he's throwing downward and opening his chest. So notice how he's leaving with his knee in, hips rotated. This is what's causing his rotation and about 180 in the air. So that's one of the things he really needs to change is you can't be dropping your shoulder. Instead, you need to be lifting your chest up. The next problem is he's throwing down towards his tail. So notice as he goes off the takeoff, his head gets closer and closer to his board. For Wildcat, you really need to be strong in the core. So I told Dave he needs to stiffen up, stay strong, and shift the hips forward. I'm going to just demonstrate this a bit. So instead of trying to do the Wildcats like throwing your back arm down towards your tail, what breaks you, making it so you're disconnected, you're not strong in the back, and you're just feeling weak and not in control. Instead, how you should think about a Wildcat is strong, stiff, and you're trying to hip check upward. Hip check, and as you do that, your upper body rotates while staying strong. Your neck then stays strong and connected to throw through. So I went and told Dave to change from going and throwing down like this, causing his core to hyperextend, neck to get loose, knees to buckle, and change that to an upward strong stacked motion where you're thrusting your hips up, off your tail, keeping everything strong, neck, not throwing it backwards, but instead keeping it strong and connected, because if you do this motion, the rotation is going to come around and you're going to stay stacked. So with that, you're all caught up on the advice I gave Dave, and now let's check out how he's managed to go and improve and where he needs to go and take his riding next. And we'll start with the Wildcat because it's the freshest in my mind. So Dave got the opportunity to go to an airbag. What helps so much? He said he tried 10 Wildcats, 3 of them he over-rotated. So this already looks so much better. There's a few things that are still an issue that we will cover in a second, but you can see he's staying a lot stronger off his board, compromising himself a lot less. And then look at this rotation is nice and straight. He's getting that straight Wildcat axis, no front or back rotation. So that's a massive improvement, and it's on a much bigger jump. What's actually going to help a lot because it makes it so the motion's less hard. But when he's working on the Wildcat, it's probably not going to be on jump this big. So there's a few things he needs to do here in order to get this Wildcat ready for like a 10-foot park jump. The first is he's still opening and dropping his back shoulder a little bit. You can see it right here, how his chest is opened up and he's dropping down a little bit. This isn't as punishing on a big jump because he isn't throwing down with as much momentum. And he is going and shooting his hips forward. But he can go and skip this whole forward twisting motion and it will just make the trick a lot easier and give a lot more power. It's going to be really useful on a smaller jump because what this bent down position is doing is it's making it so he can't extend his legs. You can see that it's taken off and his legs are still bent up. This means he's not getting pop off the jump. And when you're not fully getting pop off the jump, you're not going to be able to control your air time as well. And that's why some of his Wildcats would have resulted in over-rotation because he's not on that proper arc rotation of a jump. So Dave, what I want you to do next time is focus on staying more stacked, more squared, and not letting your back arc down quite as much. A little bit of forward is okay, and you're not rounding in the back like that. So this isn't the worst case scenario, but I just want you to be a little straighter in the legs, a little stronger with a little less rotation, and that's going to make it so you can get more power off your board, making it so you can get it around without needing to go and panic and rush for rotation by dropping your shoulder in the future. Because that's going to be really important when you go into smaller jumps. The smaller jump you go, the more you're going to feel like you need to get it around. So it's important to go and really tell yourself your power is going to come from thrusting your hips up over that tail, keeping everything connected, not by dropping that shoulder and going and contracting yourself into a ball. But massive improvement. I was really stoked to see that. Now let's go over the frontside and backside 360s. Tall and extended, coming in strong through that spoon of a jump. And look at this transition, waiting to get your heels into going uphill. That is such a massive improvement. And then the snap is nice and slow, delayed, popping up and getting so much more power off the jump. And you can see, even getting a glab here, so not needing to rely on quite as much counter rotation. That said, there's a few things that are going wrong. First is the final extended motion is still too soon. So even though everything is delayed and everything's going well, his throw is too fast and aggressive last second. So you can see holding that final snap position, going off the jump, causing pre-spin and pre-rotation, also reaching for the grab super early. So Dave here, you're reaching for the grab before you're even off a lip, and this is going to make it so you can't get a full extension, and you're going and holding your fully snapped form off a lip, what doesn't let you translate it into rotation. So you just need to delay that snap. Your timing for the snap was good, but then you just went and snapped too soon, too fast. So this full motion's fine, but I want you to, instead of going and throwing down, pushing into your board, focus on extending up, taking this back arm and letting it lift upwards before reaching for the grab. Now let's compare your frontside 360 to one of my frontside 360s. For this one, I'm exaggerating a few motions for the video. The two things I really want to note off the takeoff here is I'm doing the same delay on the setup carve. You can see I'm switching to my heel edge once I'm going up the hill. So that is such a sick improvement that you managed to make. And it's really important once you're getting to bigger jumps. The next thing that you really need to change on the takeoff is instead of throwing down to reach your grab and letting your upper body rotate and stay down, you want to be extending. So whenever you're trying to hit a grab off a spin, the first part is that extension off at takeoff. So notice how I'm fully extended, arms up and tall, and then I let the snap of the jump bring my legs up to me, grabbing around 180. Let's go and compare that to your 360. So for your 360, you're going and coming in, good delay on the setup carve, nice and patient, but look at your upper body. Instead of extending up, you're snapping down, letting you hit the grab even before you're at 90 degrees. This is why you're not getting that smooth controlled rotation and that good pop off the jump. So you need to go and change from this downward throw to an upward pop. Let's just go over it, and I'm going to point out the landing now, because the landing's the other spot you need to improve on. First, just grabbing at like 180 is where you want to be landing. So focus on getting that full extension. It helps so much. It also helps with the landing and the spot. So see right here at 180, my eyes are completely locked down at the knuckle. So this is something you're already doing, but the difference is I'm keeping my eyes there until I hit the landing and then some. So I'm landing with my head facing all the way back uphill. But when you land, your eyes are facing downhill. So here, you're spotting the knuckle, all good. And then once you hit this blind portion, instead of keeping your eyes on the knuckle, you're looking forward. And that's going to cause you to slip out to your butt pretty much every single time. So you're not trying to just force your eyes back uphill. Instead, you're trying to utilize the constant spot, keeping your spot on the knuckle through the full rotation. I'm going to play the slow-mo here. Watch my eyes. I'm keeping my head down, eyes locked on the knuckle the whole time. And as I pass it, my vision shifts with it. And this is what lets you utilize counter rotation, but still keep your feet coming down in a controlled way. And look at here, having your eyes set this way will let you dig in your toes and really get power and control stopping that landing. So those are the changes you need to make for your frontside 360. Getting extension off the takeoff instead of compressing, and then waiting to grab into 180, and then holding your eyes on the knuckle, spotting it, and locking them there until you hit the landing, and then some before looking up. This is the newest backside 360. Because he didn't come in with a massive heel edge carve, it becomes really easy to hold that toe edge. And look at how straight he's able to hold that toe edge for how long. That is such an improvement from what we were seeing before. Because if a jump was, say, like this long, and the takeoff was here, would be keeping that line the whole way. What's so good. So great improvement on keeping the takeoff straight. There's still a few funks that's happening, mostly the axis of rotation and knuckling. So you can see he's coming in and his butt is sort of like coming into a knuckle here, and the feet are out towards the slope. From this position, you're not going to be able to go and get back to your feet. Here's a lot more extended, and he's leading the rotation of his upper body, but there's a few things here causing a mistake. The first one is this jump is much, much bigger than the other one, so you're going to need to slow it down. So see how he's getting this pre-spin? Right here off a takeoff? You really need this to be a little bit less. You want to be straighter. You want to be taking off a takeoff around this position. So this is just a little bit early, resulting in sort of falling forward and leaning forward because he's taking off with his upper body and board too rotated. So all you need to do here is take that form and take this position for here. So if you go and do this snap where you're going and snapping, and that's your final point of extension as your tail snaps off the end, that's going to give you a lot more up and a lot more control, and then follow that up with your spot and control. It's going to be a lot easier to control the spin because this is really close. Really, it's just that one little thing that's throwing it off. Now let's compare your backside 360 to one of mine. This is one of my better backside 360s I got on film this year, and there's going to be a few super serious changes and differences you'll see in this one. The first being my pop. Notice how when I'm leaving off a takeoff, I hardly have any rotation in my upper body. This is because a backside 360, it's more important to stay stacked and strong because you can use your core and momentum to carry around as long as you get the good pop. And that lets me lead the rotation of my upper body. Let's compare that with your backside 360. On your backside 360, first of all, you're coming in and you're getting on your toe edge still a little bit too soon. You do a really good job holding it, but it's slightly too long. But the biggest difference is look at how angled and rotated you are off the takeoff. And then you're needing to hold this rotation. So you can go and get way more power off the takeoff with less rotation just by going and improving your timing. So that's how I want you to think about getting this power off a takeoff. Instead of having it so you need more rotation with your upper body, your board, instead think about leaving the takeoff with everything still being connected and still having rotational force being generated from your upper body. So even though my rotation here is a very small range of motion, it's fluently timed. So I'm not speeding it up or slowing it down. It's this fluid motion that gives you power and control while also letting you get a strong pop off the jump. So in order to get more power out of your back free, that's what you need to do. Focus less on going and throwing the spin and more on getting a slow, slight rotation so you leave off the takeoff with spinning momentum still being generated, but not with your upper body in such a compromised position. It starts making your board rotate and starts making you dip in your upper body. Because if we go and highlight the takeoff here versus your takeoff here, you can see that you're completely angled downwards and pre-spinning, and that's what's causing you to get on this off-kilter axis. Even though you're using your upper body to pull through so it's better than it was, you don't have the control and stability in the air to fully utilize your muscles. The more you need to go and stabilize yourself, the more your axis is wrong, the less you're going to be able to control your spin. So focus on staying strong, less rotation off the lip, and that's going to let you use your back arm and keep everything connected to come in strong to the landing. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you like this video analysis and you think it could help you improve your riding, check out Addiction Plus team. Just get a clip of your riding, carving, rails, jumps, whatever, and you can submit it to Addiction Plus.